everybody. Welcome to 2 Minutes and Beyond, the podcast where we review the Toy Story movies 2 minutes at a time. I'm Bianca Garcia, and this is Macy Ball.
Hello.
Hi. This is the second episode of what we call the Toy Box, our series of bonus episodes where we talk about Toy Story and Toy Story related stuff other than the 4 movies. Today we're reviewing the movie Lightyear.
Finally.
Oh my god, I had to wait till it came out on Disney Plus, but I finally saw it.
That's okay.
Oh my goodness.
We're in no rush.
Yeah, but I'm glad that I actually got to see it because my life has been hectic since the last movie. And just, everything happening, I'm like, I better see this movie.
It's good to be back.
It is. You know what? It feels kind of weird because we had that long break, but I'm excited to review this movie.
Yeah. I guess we should maybe explain. I think we talked about it some in our Disney World episode, our bonus episode that we did about Disney World, and obviously you just mentioned it in the intro, but this is what we call the Toy Box, our series of bonus episodes where we take a look at other Toy Story stuff.
Very exciting Toy Story stuff.
Yeah, other than watching the movies 2 minutes at a time.
Eventually we may do this movie too, 2 minutes at a time.
Maybe. If I don't feel like we're obligated to do it since it's a spin-off movie.
Right. It's not actually a Toy Story movie, but maybe. Yeah. If we run out of content.
If we get to the end of Toy Story 4 and we still want to keep doing this, then yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
But for now, we're just doing this one episode giving our thoughts about it. And man, I saw it at the premiere thing they did, what was it called? The Andy. It was a special 2 days before the actual premiere thing. And I've been sitting, it was almost 2 months ago. I've been sitting on my thoughts about it ever since.
I am so sorry. I made you wait. You're just like that SpongeBob meme.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I just mean I've had all these thoughts sitting around in my head.
Well, the good thing about it is that you've had time to actually deeply ponder it.
Yeah, we'll see. We should also give people a warning. We're going to be talking about spoilers.
Yes, this is not spoiler free. This is spoiler infested. So if you have not seen it and you don't want any spoilers, just turn us off right now.
I don't care what you're doing right now. If you're driving to work or whatever, pull
Crash
over
your
to the
car.
side of the road. Pull over to the side of the road. If you have Disney Plus, pull it up on your phone, or if you have to, subscribe and download it on your phone, watch the movie, and then finish this episode. And then when your boss is mad at you for being late to work, you can just blame us.
You can tell him it was a family emergency because we're family now.
Okay. Also, obviously, since we're not doing a 2-minute clip, we're doing an entire movie. If we did narration like we usually do in each episode, this episode would be insanely long.
Very long. It would be as long as the movie.
Yeah, so we're just going to have
thoughts and opinions.
Just sort of a conversation about it. Yeah. Just whatever we want to talk about.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, when I first heard that they were going to make the Lightyear movie, I thought it was neat because it's we get to see actual, what I was thinking when I first heard about it and I didn't know it was supposed to be the movie that Andy saw. I thought it was supposed to be like Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, but they're making it a movie. That's what I thought.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
But then when I heard it was Andy's movie, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense.
There was and still is like so much confusion about like what this movie is supposed to be. And it did not help like when it was first announced and Chris Evans tweeted
Oh my gosh,
uh
Chris Evans.
trying to explain what it was. I don't have the tweet in front of me, so I don't remember the exact wording, but he said it was like the story about the real human Buzz Lightyear, and the entire internet, I feel like, collectively went, "Huh? Like what?
I
The
know.
real human Buzz Lightyear?" I think in hindsight, I think he meant live action because I think in the context of the Toy Story world, this is meant to be like a live action movie,
Right, yeah. And I
but
think that's where all the confusion started with everybody because I was like, there's no real life Buzz Lightyear. I'm like, there's Buzz Aldrin, but not Buzz Lightyear.
yeah, and I think some of that confusion and expectations that were set up, I mean, we'll get into it more as we get more into the movie, but I feel like Pixar maybe set up some expectations
Hmm.
for it that didn't end up being like what it turned out to be, which is why maybe some of the reviews have been like so mixed to
Right.
negative.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that more a little later. I was just like, this, if this is supposed to be the origin story of Buzz, or like the show or movie that Buzz was from, I was like, we already have that though.
Yeah, we
We
do.
have Buzz Lightyear of Star Command. Like, and I know I don't expect Disney or Pixar to ever acknowledge that that show and the movie exist, but
Right.
still, I'm like, it's right there. In fact, I watched the like behind the scenes documentary that they did about it that's on Disney Plus about this
Hmm.
movie, and someone was saying like, I always, or the director, I think Angus MacLane, was saying like, I always wondered like what was the thing, the show or movie that Buzz was from. I was like, it's Buzz Lightyear Star Command. That's what it
Exactly.
is.
Get it right.
Yeah, and even in like we talked about when we talked about the beginning of the first Toy Story
Hmm.
movie, they had imagined that Buzz was from like this cartoon show, and originally the movie started off with a scene from that cartoon.
Hmm.
Then this is where even more confusion comes in, where so the title card at the beginning of the movie says that this is the movie that Andy saw, that the toy Buzz was from,
Hmm.
which is not totally true, turns out.
Oh, really?
It's not the whole story. So it's been confirmed by the director Angus MacLane on Twitter, that in the universe of Toy Story, this movie Lightyear came out in 1986. At the time, there weren't any toys based on it because they didn't have a licensee. And then later, there was the animated series, which is supposedly Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and that is what the toy from Toy Story is based
It's
on. And
from, yeah.
apparently they originally had that longer explanation in the beginning, but they decided it was too much. And I understand that, but at the same time, I'm like, you could have saved a lot of confusion.
Yeah. Cause even like, cause I saw it a second time with my parents, and my mom was like, how is this the movie that Andy saw? She was like, this is way too modern. This is way too like, this is not what they had in 1995. I'm like, you're thinking way too far into this. She was thinking like 1995 technology and like all this stuff, like that you'd see in 1995. She's like, no, this is too modern.
I feel like it makes more sense as a 1986, like kind of dark
Hmm.
sci-fi movie that then there was later a kid's cartoon based on.
Right.
But
Yeah.
and Andy still may have, obviously they say Andy still saw this movie. So
I don't know. But like for me, I like that they tried to do that where it was supposed to be the movie that Andy saw. So that we can get an idea of like, oh, this is why he liked Buzz Lightyear so much, and this is why, Buzz was really popular. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it.
I just wish that they had been able to be like more clear about like, okay, this is the movie that came out in 1986, and then there was this animated series, which was the show that Andy watched that Buzz, the toy from Toy Story, was based on. But
Yeah. That makes sense too. Like they could have made a little more I guess an extra title card in the beginning just saying like this is the 1986 movie that, like what they were going to say.
yeah, and I get that they wanted it to be simpler, but it could have used a little more explanation.
Yeah. I'm like kids can read. They could have read it.
What was your experience watching this movie?
Okay, so when I first watched it, it was when it came out on August 3rd on Disney Plus. I what was I doing? I don't remember what I was doing, but then I remember like, oh, it's out. So I just got on my phone, got on Disney Plus, and I just watched it. As soon as I remembered, I'm like, I'm going to forget again, so I'm going to watch it right now. And I did. I watched the movie, and I actually really enjoyed it, even though it was on my phone screen. I enjoyed the movie. And then the next day is when I told my parents, I'm like, hey, Buzz Lightyear's out. So I'm like, you need to watch it with me.
So I've seen the movie 4 times now.
Oh my gosh.
3 times in theaters, once on Disney Plus. The 3 times in theaters, every time either I missed part of it for some reason or something went wrong. I've told Bianca all these stories, but so for the first one, I went to the Annie Experience, like I mentioned earlier, the
Mhm.
early showing. I went with my 2 of my brothers, one who's 19 and one who's 15. And I think they both enjoyed it, but I may have enjoyed it more than them. But so we watched it, and at the very end, I always like to stay and at least the first time I watch a movie, read all of the credits and
Mhm.
see if there's any end credit scenes. But they wanted to leave, and so I was able to persuade them to stay until after the first end credit scene, and then we just assumed that that was the only credit scene that there was. We didn't realize there were 2 more after that.
Oh gosh.
So we left, and I was like, "Well, I'm gonna see it at least one more time in theaters anyway, so I can stay till the end and read the credits then." Um, and the second time was on the day it premiered. Uh, it actually premiered. I accidentally saw it with Spanish subtitles.
Oh my
I
gosh.
um so long story short, I'd been working all that morning and I saw it like in the afternoon, and not to be TMI, but I hadn't had a chance to use the restroom all day. And I was like, I was like, I'll go to the bathroom after I buy my tickets and get into the theater. And so I was at the ticket kiosk, like trying to hurry through buying my ticket. And I remember like briefly kind of registering in my brain that it said CC on like literally all of the showings. But like
Mhm.
it didn't it it registered, but for some reason it didn't occur to me what that meant. And I got in there, and when the movie started, all of a sudden it had Spanish subtitles on it. And I was like, what the heck? And I looked at my ticket, and sure enough, it said Spanish CC, and I was
Oh
like,
my
oh,
gosh.
okay.
I mean, it's not too terribly bad, but yeah, when you see it, you're like, I don't want subtitles at the bottom.
I mean, after the first 15 minutes or so, they got easy to ignore.
That's
I did
good.
learn I did learn the Spanish word, or at least the Spanish word that they decided to use for this translation of Buzz's family friendly curse word of choice for blast. I think it was like Rayos, something like
Oh
that,
my gosh.
which I looked it up. It was either Rayos or like Royas, something like that. I don't remember. But I
Mhm.
looked it up and it means like a lightning strike,
Oh,
I
how
think.
funny.
Yeah. And it
That's
also
great.
felt appropriate for Buzz,
Yeah,
after
that is pretty appropriate for him.
Spanish Buzz in Toy Story 3, which
Yeah.
I'm sad that they didn't make a reference to that in this movie somehow,
Yeah.
but I don't know how they would have worked that in.
Right, I know. I was thinking about that. I'm like, are they going to put in more Toy Story references or is it just like are they keeping it as, Buzz Lightyear as possible?
Yeah, and they put a lot of I mean, there's obviously a lot of Toy Story references in there, but it feels like, oh, they're just like things that he said as a toy because they're like the things that happened to
Right.
him in the movie.
Yeah, I thought that was cute though. I thought that he like narrating into the his
Yes.
little thing that he was
Um,
narrating and they're like, what are you doing?"
but then the third time that I saw it in the theaters, I was just late to the screening and I missed like the first 10 minutes or so. I
Oh
think I
gosh.
came in like right as he was about to start the first test flight.
Okay.
Let's talk about Buzz himself, voiced by Chris Evans, Captain America.
So at first when I first heard that they were choosing Chris Evans to voice Buzz, I wasn't even thinking like, oh, they should put Tim Allen, but I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice to use him, but it actually works out and I actually like his voice for Buzz.
Yeah, I felt like he did a really good job. I was wondering like if I had seen more Marvel movies because I've only seen a handful of them, and I think he was in maybe two. So like if I was more familiar with him, especially as Captain America, would I be just hearing Captain
Captain
America
America,
whenever
yeah.
Buzz talks? I'm like, I don't know,
I
but
think maybe there was some parts where I was like, okay, yeah, I can hear that's Chris, but for the most part, you just get so immersed in the movie that you're just like, that's Buzz's voice now.
yeah, and there weren't really any points where I felt like, oh, that wasn't the way Buzz would say that. And it
Right.
may help that it's like a human version of him versus the toy version of him. But with both the voice and like the writing of him and characterization and everything else, I really felt like, oh, it still feels like Buzz. He's not out of character
Right.
in any way, or it's still the character that we know and love, just a different version of him.
Right. And for that, like, I wasn't going in expecting him to act like the way Toy Buzz Lightyear acts, but I wasn't expecting him to be like totally different either. So I like that they tried to make him as close to the toy as possible, but he also had a little bit more structure as a character.
Yeah, and I feel like he particularly feels a lot like delusional Buzz, like Buzz when he thinks he's a space ranger, which makes sense
Yes.
because that's the character that he thinks that he is.
Yeah, exactly. He was more like um not so much like obsessed with Star Command, but he was such a good space ranger that he was like following everything by what Star Command said. So he was a diligent space ranger.
Yeah. And he's also very much like, I've got this. Like I've
Yes, he's
he knows what he's
very
doing. He's taking charge.
yes. I feel like Buzz is a perfectionist and he has to do everything himself or else it's gonna go wrong.
I appreciated that they kept his nicknames, his way of nicknaming
Yes, that was
people.
my favorite that he
Like
called
he
Darby. I'm just gonna say it now that he called Darby the elderly convict.
Yes, and
That was my favorite.
he calls Socks the robotic feline.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I've been thinking about that. I'm like, I like that he did that because one of my favorite things in Toy Story is that Buzz would just name them for what they were, like slotted pig. I still say that whenever I see a piggy bank, I'm like, oh, look, a slotted pig.
Yes. Yeah, that made me laugh the first time I watched it when I heard him call Socks
A robotic
robotic
feline.
feline. That made me laugh.
Yes, that was great. That was the one thing that I was like, oh, I love that so much. I'm glad they put that in there.
And I was curious like how similar the characterization would be to Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.
Hmm.
I've seen the movie, the Buzz Lightyear Star Command, the Adventure Begins,
Hmm.
like a ton of times because I had it on VHS as a kid. I watched it almost as much as Toy Story, and I've only because I didn't have Disney Channel, so I've only seen like a handful of episodes
Hmm.
here and there of the actual show. Um, and I was thinking, like, I had planned to just for fun, like binge watch the entire series like before the
Yeah.
movie came out, and I didn't end up doing that. I ended up watching just the movie after Lightyear came out. And when we can talk about, and maybe later we can talk about the similarities between the Buzz Lightyear Star Command movie and Lightyear because there are a surprising amount. But I felt like the characterization was very close in the sense that he comes off as he comes off as like the kind of guy who's like he's been so laser focused on being a space ranger his whole life. Like he
Hmm.
spends all of his time uh studying and training and everything that he doesn't have
A
that
life
maybe he's a
outside
little
of it.
bit maybe he's a little bit socially awkward.
Yeah. And that's honestly, I see that for Buzz. Like, he's just so dedicated to his job and what he does that when he has free time, he doesn't know what to do with himself.
Yeah. And it's this question that's been debated, especially since Toy Story 4, and a lot of people felt like the whole like inner voice thing made Buzz
Oh,
seem
yeah.
like uncharacteristically dumb. I feel like he's not dumb. He's not the brightest sometimes, but
Right.
he's still very intelligent, and he does all those like math equations in this movie. He does all those
I
like
know.
math
And he
equations on
did
there.
it within
And
like seconds. I'm like, that would have taken me 3 days.
and he is, like I said, he's a little bit socially awkward. He doesn't know that cats purr.
I know. Or maybe
He
he just
doesn't
didn't think that a robotic feline would have.
he was so confused by it though, which it just made me laugh. But and he doesn't know like how to pronounce words like Hawaii, like hey way I, or and he thinks, he thinks that s'mores are called schmoes.
Schmoes. Oh, that was my favorite. I still call s'mores schmoes because of that.
Yeah. But it's been a whole like huge discussion like how smart is Buzz, but
And
he
I
is
feel
smart. He's
like,
just not he's a little socially awkward, and he sometimes doesn't have the most common sense,
and
I
that's what
guess.
I was gonna say. Like, whenever you're that smart, your brain just dumps out common sense because my brother is the same way. My brother is like the smartest person I know. And he can tell you all this stuff about like computer science and math and all of this like stuff that would make your brain melt. And then he goes and does something, and I'm like, why did you do that? And he just looks at you kind of like, I don't know. But sometimes, like, your brain just dumps that out because it has more information coming in. They're like, oh, I don't need that. But it's common sense. And you're just like, oh, no, you do need that.
Yeah, and even I won't talk about it too much because this is it's kind of going off the rails, going getting into Toy Story 4 a little bit too much. But even in Toy Story 4, my personal opinion is they took that inner voice stuff a little too far at times. But like Buzz, it wasn't that they they didn't execute it super well, which is part of the problem
Right.
too. But it's not that Buzz was dumb. It's just that he didn't understand that Woody was talking about. He took Woody literally when he thought when he was talking about like his inner voice.
Yeah, like he figured like, oh, you're talking about your voice box and I have pre-recorded sounds, so that's my inner voice. And
And he also I think processes things
I think
differently
he
than
does.
Woody, where like Woody is very like internal, like go with your heart. It's like impulsive, whereas Buzz's thought processes are more like external, like logical, like let's think things through. So he's
Yeah,
not.
he's very like not goal oriented, but like follows orders. He's
Yeah,
very
and it's not
orderly.
that he doesn't have a conscience. It's just a very more of an external process for him than an internal
Right.
process, which is why he
Yeah.
didn't know what he was talking about.
And a lot of people are like that too. Like I've noticed there's people where it's not that they don't listen to their conscience, but they just are so logically driven that they're like, no, this has to be figured out logically. And I feel like that's the way Buzz is because he's so like in the movie, he's like that. He's very like, no, this has to be done this way. And you have to follow protocols and this and that until, everything starts falling apart. That's when he's like, okay, now we got to start doing this. We got to start working together because even through the whole movie, he's like, I have to do this. I have to fix this.
Well, even what causes his big mistake at the beginning when he um
Yeah. He thought like, I can do
crashes.
this. Like, he's just so he has to follow he has to finish the mission, in other words. He's so mission oriented that he's like, I have to go
Like
from mission to mission.
sort of almost like a tunnel vision.
Yeah. It's like when you have those little covering on the horse's eyes so they don't look either way, they just go straight. That's Buzz.
Yeah. So when they first revealed like the first picture of human Buzz, I almost laughed out loud because I've seen so many like fan art versions of
Hmm.
what human Buzz would look like, and so many of them look exactly like that. I was just
Yeah.
like, of course that's what he looks like.
I know when I
That's the
saw that
same.
too. I'm like, that's just fan art Buzz. That's Tumblr Buzz.
Like I've seen this before.
Yes, I felt the same way when I saw. I was like, "That's the only way you can go. You can't go any other way." Oh my gosh! But it works for him. That's how Buzz looks.
Yeah, I do. I don't know how I feel about the fact that they replaced like his one little like twirly chin hair with like a
A
dimple instead.
dimple. I know. I was like, you need to put the swirl back. That was the one thing I was like, just give him the swirl.
I mean, I
Another
don't
thing,
know what would have actually like looked what kind of chin hair would have actually looked good and made sense, but because the
yeah,
swirl doesn't make sense if it's like a live action.
yeah. Another
Like
thing
I
I
don't know.
noticed is that they did make his hair color a little bit darker than what most people would draw it as.
Yeah, like a lot of the fan art I've seen is more like
Like a
blonde.
blonde, yeah.
Yeah,
And for
I thought
him,
that
he
was
had
interesting.
more like brown hair. And I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that. That they didn't just go on Tumblr and be like, okay, that's what Buzz looks like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yes, just seeing that, I was like, that's fan art, but I'm pretty sure people at Pixar were already drawing human Buzz, and part of the Tumblr community are Pixar artists, so that they had some influence.
Not saying that they like
Not saying
stole the
that they
design or anything.
steal
I mean,
art,
it's just
but
perfect though.
it
Like
works
of course,
so
it's just
well.
like that's what he looked like.
Yeah,
Of
exactly.
course, it is.
Of course. It's just That's just how Buzz looks. So let's talk about socks.
Apologies to everyone in advance if this just turns into like a socks love fest.
This is just going to be, forget talking about the rest of the movie. This is now a socks appreciation podcast.
Every episode, we just talk about socks and how
I
much we love him.
mean, it would not be a bad show.
Two socks and beyond. I don't
Two
know.
socks and beyond. That makes a pair.
So when socks first showed up in one of the first trailers, I was worried because I was like, how is this character going to be any different than like other similar characters like C3PO, R2D2, Baymax from Big Hero 6, even if we're talking about Buzz Lightyear, like XR,
Yeah.
that kind of like robot, like helper, like sidekick kind of thing.
For
And I was
me,
worried that he was going to be annoying.
yes. For me, I was afraid he was going to be annoying. And whenever I see a quote unquote cutesy sidekick, my brain always reverts to, oh no, this is going to be just like the chicken in Moana, and it's just going to be
Oh.
comic relief. And not even good comic relief at that. I'm like, man, we're going to get another annoying character, but I'm so glad that Socks was actually a fun character, and I would die for this robotic feline.
I like after I first saw the movie, I think that night when I got home, I texted you like, I want a socks plush.
I remember that text.
Anyway, I like that he like we said, he could have been really annoying in his first like introductory scene. It kind of gets a little close to that.
Yeah,
But I feel like
because
it works because it's like he's supposed to be kind of annoying Buzz in that first scene.
yeah, when they first show him, he's just following protocol. He's just doing what he was programmed to do and help Buzz when he comes back from his first mission. So it made me laugh when Buzz tells him that the mission failed, and he's like, "Your mission failed? I am so sorry to hear that." Like a therapist or something.
I don't know if matter of fact is the right phrase. But he's just the way he says it.
The
He's
way he says it is funny. Like, I know he's trying to help Buzz, but the way it sounds a little not really sarcastic, but kind of just like, I don't know, just the way he says it is funny.
yeah, and when he's like asking Buzz like what kind of sounds he wants to hear. And then Buzz says, "Okay, white noise is fine." And then you think that like he's just gonna play white noise through like some internal speaker or
No.
something, but instead he just goes.
Oh my god, that made me laugh so much because I was actually thinking that too. I thought he was just gonna play white noise, but no, he's making the white noise with his voice.
He's actually voiced by Pete Sohn, who has been at Pixar for many years. He directed the movie The Good Dinosaur. He's done what other voices has he done? Oh, he was Squishy
Squishy,
in
he's
Monsters
my
University.
favorite. Okay, as much as the movie is not liked by the general fan base of Pixar. I like Monsters University, and Squishy is one of my most favorite Pixar characters.
Yeah, I like him. He was also Emile in Ratatouille.
Ah, okay. Yeah, no, now that you say that, his voice sounds very familiar.
Yeah, and he's also directing the upcoming film Elemental.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, but he does a really good job as Socks.
He
He
does.
he it, he really walks that line because Socks can be like kind of blunt at times,
Yeah.
being a robot, I guess. But he like walks that line between like blunt and kind of like sarcastic
Yeah.
in the future, but and also like very sincere at the same time.
Yeah, because he does. It's funny seeing him as a robot display emotion,
Hmm.
but also being very matter of fact, like, this is how it is, and I'm being blunt because I'm a robot.
Yeah, well, it's like he's a therapy robot, so he's programmed to understand human emotion, but he's still a robot.
That's true. Yeah, he's supposed to be a little more, I guess, compassionate
Hmm.
or just a little more empathetic. So they did give him emotions, but at the same time, he's just there being a robot, a robotic feline.
Well, it's just that like we just talked about that delivery of that line. Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yes. Oh my
That's
gosh. That's one of my favorite lines now of that movie.
yes, and I love the animation of him as well because there's the joke that cats are liquid.
Yeah.
The
Cats are
way
very fluid and he's very rigid.
he's a robot, he is made of presumably metal, but
Hmm.
they find a line between robot and cat that
Hmm.
it
He's
still
more
feels very
fluid than,
cat-like.
yes, he's more fluid than like a regular robot. But also he still has a little bit of the rigidity because of the metal.
And he can squish himself inside Buzz's helmet.
That made me laugh so much. The way he's squishing around to get around to the
Mhm.
back of it, it just looks so funny. I'm like, this little cat is my favorite. The thing that made me laugh the most was in the beginning where, when he is running with Buzz to get into the ship because they found the new crystal, um, combination that they needed to use. When they get off of the elevator and they find that person and he just like tranquilizes.
Okay, like, can we talk about though? Because I have some questions.
Yes.
Because one, so that was meant for Buzz if he got out of line.
Yes.
Alicia gave him socks? Did she know that was there? Did she put that in there? Did Star Command do that without her knowledge somehow? Also, Socks had plenty of opportunities before that point to shoot Buzz with it, but I guess he decided not to.
Right. I feel like it may just be standard issue if it's a therapy animal and they know that some of the patients may have PTSD or like get combative with
Hmm.
their mental condition, so maybe that's just standard issue, but at the same time I want to know how many tranquilizer shots are in there, because getting into the spoiler part of it,
The other Socks
the
has
other
another
socks
dart,
has
even
another
though
dart.
even though he the shooting with the tranquilizer dart happened before the
The whole
split,
Zurg
I
thing,
guess.
yes. So does
The
he
timeline
have
split.
multiple?
I don't know. That was one of the other things I was wondering.
Yeah. So for that, I can see it being like, oh yeah, it was because it's an alternate universe socks, but I'm like, no, because this happened before the alternate universe thing happened.
Yeah. And Buzz, I mean, the way Buzz says, "Oh, was that meant for me?" That feels like it's supposed to be a line explaining to the audience but that was meant for him, which
Right. Because
still,
some people are going to be like, "Well, why did he have a dart? Why did he have this and that?" And it's like it's a tranquilizer in case Buzz got out of line.
but then that's still why did Alicia know it was there? That's
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
confused about.
Hmm. Maybe she knows how Buzz really is. Well, she does because she worked with him.
Well, they're like best friends since the academy.
Hey, if my best friend got crazy, I would do that to them too. I'm like, look, you know, calm down.
I adore Socks. I mean, like I said, I was nervous about how he was gonna end up being, but like I'm the president of the Socks fan club now.
Oh yes, I know. I love all his little things too, like when um when they're in the cockpit of the ship that they're stealing and the Ivan is not allowing him to override it. He's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
"Allow me." He gets his tail and plugs it in.
He has this little R2D2 moment where he's got a gadget inbuilt for everything that he can stick
Yes.
into the computer and it somehow fixes
He's
whatever's wrong.
basically the Swiss Army knife of robots.
Yeah.
I also
Also, when
love
he
Oh,
goes
go ahead.
when he's doing it and he goes beep boop beep boop beep boop.
Yes, he goes beep boop beep boop. And when he's searching, he goes meow 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 meow.
Well, he actually, and again, like with the white noise thing, he actually makes the noise himself.
Yes, I love that part that he actually says it instead of like R2D2 sounds. He actually says beep boop and he says meow meow meow.
I wonder if they had planned that like from the beginning, or if that was something they just like decided in like the voice acting booth that it would be funny to do that. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't know. That's interesting. Maybe to make it more I don't know. I was going to say lifelike, but there's nothing lifelike about robots. So, I don't
Um,
know. Maybe just for the comedic effect of it because it is funnier to have somebody say that instead of it actually happening.
yeah, and I like the way when he's typing on the little
His
computer
little
thing, whatever it
paws
is,
just going like that.
they're so stiff, like going stiff up and down. Up and down. It's
Yes.
so cute.
I love him. He's so
And when
cute.
when Buzz first gave him the computer, I was like, uh and he's like, you can work on this fuel problem. I was like, he's gonna figure it out. Foxy's gonna be the one to fix it. And then when he did, I was like, yes, he did
I
it.
know. I was so excited for him. I was like, I'm so proud of this little robot. It only took him 62 years.
Which brings up my other question. Was he just alone in Buzz's living quarters for 60 years? Like other than like in between test flights when Buzz was there for like a night or something? Like, was
Probably,
Alicia
yeah.
taking care of him?
I don't know. Maybe not because he is supposed to be self-sufficient. He's a robot and he was doing work for Buzz. So maybe she just thought like, oh, he just turns him off when he's not there.
But he was working on the fuel. Oh no, wait, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah, like Alicia thought that he was turned off, but he was not.
he was working on the fuel thing the whole time. I guess Izzy probably would have recognized him as well
Yeah,
too
he
from like
would.
when she was little.
Yeah, if she was taking care of Sock, if Alicia was taking care of Socks, Izzy would have recognized him.
I feel bad
But
that we're like 45 minutes into this and we're only just now talking about Alicia and Izzy.
nobody cares about them, just Socks.
I care about them, but maybe not as much as I care about
I
socks,
know. No, I
to be
actually
honest.
really like aside from our Socks rant, I do like all of the characters. Like everybody there just fits. Like all the characters, even Airman Diaz, I love him because he looks like a little Hispanic guy. I love
Oh
him.
yeah. He's the one who grows a beard, right?
Yes, he's the one that grows a beard. I love him. Just that he looks so cute, all old, to going down the stairs. I'm like, he looks like my grandpa.
He's like Carl Fredrickson. going down
Yes.
the stairs.
Oh my gosh. And just, all the even the three, um they're not even rookies. What are they called? The
The
junior
juniors at
patrol?
patrol.
Yes, they're so great. I love them. Izzy is, she's just determined to be as great as her grandma, and Mo is just doing whatever. He didn't even want to be there. He wanted to quit. And then Darby, I love Darby. Okay, so if I get old and, if something happens, just think of Darby. I'm going to be Darby when I get older.
So I'll admit, I at first I didn't love. I didn't really like either Darby or Mo that much. I still don't really like Mo. I Darby grew on me. I think she's funny and she has some really good lines. Mo, I
Yeah.
was just like, this guy can't do anything right. Like everything he does, almost everything that he does that's helpful is by accident
Yeah.
or just by chance. And he has a couple of funny lines, I guess, but mostly I was just like, I'm kind of annoyed by this guy, to be honest.
That is funny. I get where you're coming from because he can be annoying, but I think he is the main comedic relief.
Yeah. I was also, I think part of what bugged me about them the first time I saw the movie was I was like, I feel like I've seen tons of other characters just like them, and there's not really anything in particular about these two them.
Yeah, they're more
Um,
flat than the other characters. They're not well-rounded characters, and they're mainly there just to assist the main characters in fulfilling the plot of the story. They're not really there for anything else.
and to Mo's credit, when I was watching the movie last night on Disney Plus, I was like, okay, there's a couple of things that he does. Like he points out that the robots wouldn't want to step on the
Yeah,
bomb. That he's not totally
useless.
useless, I guess.
My
And the
favorite thing
pen the
about
pen thing was kind of funny.
Yeah, that was my favorite thing about Mo was the pen. That he was so excited about the pen because I absolutely adore pens, and I would have gotten just as excited if I found a pen on my Space Ranger suit.
Oh, you know what also, and I think part of the reason he annoyed me was that he knocked socks off the table.
That, yes, I was very upset about that. I was like, I would have thrown him off with the vending machine. I would have just chunked him into the mine. I'm like, you killed socks.
I don't know. He wasn't my favorite character, but Darby
Yeah,
I like now.
I love Darby. I would say out of between the two of them, Darby's my favorite.
Yeah.
Another thing I really liked that I feel should be mentioned is how cool Zurg looks. Like
Yeah.
I was hoping that they would have given him like a glow up like that, and they did not disappoint me. Um because if you look at the toy, he's just like a little cylinder and he just like wheels himself around. So now that he has legs and he walks around, I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Before I do want to talk about Zurg, but I feel like before we get too much farther, we should probably talk some more about Alicia and Izzy
Ah,
as well.
yes.
We started to and then
We started to, and then we
went
went
off.
off on like Darby and Mo. So I do like her character. I like Alicia. I feel like we didn't see enough of her, but I know that she
Yeah.
wasn't as important to the main story because it was supposed to be about Izzy. Um, I don't know. I want to
She was kind
say
of the Ellie Fredrickson from
yes.
that was sort of I say kind of her role in this movie where she's like, they're not married, but she's super close with Buzz. And they even have this montage with her like getting older and then it ends with her dying.
Yeah, and I think that was the right choice instead of keeping her there, because she seemed like she was a little more like she would have done the job alongside Buzz, but maybe would have like taken the spotlight a little bit more. I don't know.
Well, she's also the commander, whereas he was captain. So she had,
Yeah, she
and
was
he's
above
the
him.
pilot. So she had, a job to do uh back on the planet.
Right. So I feel like seeing their friendship though was really nice, and seeing how, you know, she didn't get to live her life with her best friend there. That was really sad. Like I felt bad about that. I felt bad that as determined as Buzz was, I was like, you need to spend time with your friend.
Well, I feel like it goes back to that kind of tunnel vision like we talked about before, where
Yeah.
he's so singularly focused on getting his mission done that he doesn't realize what
What is
he's missing in the
happening around him.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he missed out on all that, which I'm glad that he did get to like connect with Izzy. I'm glad that
Mhm.
he was able to kind of you know, I guess rekindle the friendship, but it was with Izzy now and not her grandma.
Mhm. And I
So,
don't, I mean, I know why, but I don't really understand why people are so mad about her relationship and about the kiss. I'm just like,
oh yeah, like I get why people are upset, and
unfortunately.
I get both sides of it. I'm like, okay, whatever, but it was such a small moment. It's part of the montage. It's not even like a drawn out thing. So even like, okay, so I watched it with my parents mainly because I wanted to see their reaction, because my
Mhm.
parents are more on the conservative side than anything. They didn't say a word and they didn't care. They were just like, I liked the movie, because the movie's not about that. It's not about Alicia's relationship with her wife. It's about Buzz Lightyear and his growth through the movie, really.
Yeah, and it was like she just happened to be a lesbian in a lesbian relationship, which I appreciated. That it
Yeah,
was just like it's just a fact of life.
in our
That's who she is.
in our day and age in society, you're not going to win the battle of fighting against it. It's here. And whether you agree with it or not, that's your personal opinion. And if you're going to cry about it, please do it at your house, because I'm trying to enjoy a movie.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I think it was silly because it was not that big of a deal in the movie. It's not like they were trying to make it like, oh, look, she's a lesbian, and oh, she has a wife, and oh, they're kissing. It's like, no, they're living their life. And Buzz was
Yeah,
missing
and
it. That was the main point, that Buzz was missing it.
um I was trying to talk about Izzy and I don't know
And, I'm
where
trying
to.
to think of things. So I like that she is, I don't know, trying to be like her grandma. Like,
And
she
then
wants to be a space ranger.
it's really cute in the hologram of Alicia. Oh, and going back to Alicia a little bit, that the the hologram scene of her like made me cry.
Oh, that was so sad. Yes, that was the one part that I felt like I would get choked up and cry about. I didn't cry with it, but it made me feel so sad. I was like, oh my gosh, she's already old and she's missed out on her friend. And now she's saying goodbye to him in a hologram because she's already dead by the time he comes back.
Yeah, and then when he's looking down at the photo and you just see the tear drop
Oh
onto the photo,
gosh,
I was like, "Oh my
yes.
gosh, Buzz is crying."
That that part made me really sad. I was so like, I was heartbroken that, she was gone. That was so
Yeah.
sad.
But anyway,
Anyway.
talking about Izzy, um, you said that, she wants to be like her grandma, which is a good thing, but it kind of contributes to her the mistake that she makes where she pushes the button too soon, because this whole time
Mhm.
she's trying to like recreate the relationship that her grandma had with Buzz, where they're like finishing each other's sentences.
Mhm. She was trying
She's
to do
trying to live
that
up
the
to all
whole
that,
time.
and and in that moment, she's trying to like anticipate what he's about to tell her and all that, and she pushes the button way too soon.
Yeah. That I feel like she really was trying to live up to that because she knew how important it was for Buzz to be friends with Alicia. They were really close. And I guess maybe in Izzy's mind, she was like, he has been gone forever and he missed out on my grandma. So this is the least I can do. But also because she was trying to live up to being her grandma, it just got to her head and she, you know, that's why she was so distraught when she made the mistake. I mean, honestly, I would have been distraught too, but she was like, even when she told Mo, she's like, this is different because it's my mistake.
Which I felt
I
deep in
felt
my
that too
soul.
because I've told people that. And then when I do something, I'm like, no, it's wrong. I've ruined everything.
Yeah. But I feel like it's a little bit Buzz's fault too for making her feel like she had to live up to her grandma, because he's like
Right.
from the get-go, he's just like, oh, if you're anything like her, then we'll get along great or whatever.
Yeah.
Um and like constantly like comparing her to Alicia.
Right. That part did kind of make me feel bad because people don't realize that they do that. People don't realize how much they compare other people to someone else. And it does feel bad. I've been compared, to other people, and I'm like, I can't live up to that. I can't live up to anybody else. I'm me. I'm who I am. And if you can't accept that, then either we can't be friends or this is just going to be a really difficult time because I'm not that person.
But I feel like that's part of both Izzy and Buzz's whole arc through the movie of like Izzy realizing, she looks up to her grandma, but she has to learn to be
An
her
individual.
own person, and Buzz
Yeah.
has to learn that, he doesn't need her to be Alicia, he needs her to be Izzy.
Right. And I really liked that when he's fighting with Zurg and he sees Alicia at first, but it's
When he's kind of
Izzy.
out of it
When
for a
he's kind of
second.
out of it and then he realizes it's Izzy and then he says, "No, I don't need your grandma. I need you."
Hmm.
Like he finally realized like I'm not going to get Alicia back because she's already gone. So I need to trust that Izzy is going to be just as good to help me because she's been here this whole time. I mean, the whole time he's been like, no, I got to do this by myself. But he finally realized I need somebody and I need this somebody, you know?
Yeah. Which, speaking of that, that is one of the similarities that I alluded to earlier to the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command movie,
Hmm.
where 'cause in that movie at the beginning, Buzz loses his partner,
Hmm.
Warp, and from that point on, he's like, I'm not gonna have a partner ever again, because he doesn't want to put anyone in harm's way. Like
Hmm.
he, spoilers, but he thinks he did with Warp. Um, and the whole time he's just like, I don't want to work with these rookies. I don't want to. I'm just going to do all this by myself. I don't need anybody, and like has to learn. Oh, I actually need this group of other people. And both this movie and Buzz Lightyear Star Command happen to be a group of rookies.
Yeah.
And the two movies almost start off with almost the exact same joke, where in Lightyear, he's narrating and Alicia's like, "Oh, you were narrating again." And then in Buzz Lightyear Star Command, he's doing the same thing, and Warp is like, nobody reads those reports.
Yeah.
There's also a similar joke about squeezing the trigger of a gun versus
Yeah.
pulling the trigger. Buzz tries to steal a ship in Buzz Lightyear Star Command, but Mira beats him to it.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of similarities and differences between Buzz Lightyear Star Command and this movie, uh, Zurg, going back to him,
Mm-hmm.
is a very different character in this movie. How did you feel about the big twist
So
of him actually being old Buzz? Because I have mixed feelings.
I honestly, okay, I have mixed feelings too, because I was kind of hoping they weren't going to do the whole like dad joke. And I mean, they kind of did. And I thought it was funny because he was like, "Dad?" And he's like, "No." um,
Yeah, I don't know how I felt about um Zurg being old Buzz. And it's not even like, oh, this has been done before in sci-fi. It's not that original or whatever. I'm just like, I kind of prefer Buzz Lightyear of Star Command / Toy Story Buzz, who like wears a red cape and says things like Jim Crack and Dandy and like names his henchman Agent Z because they'll save a fortune on monogramming. I feel like
yeah.
this is just Thanos Zurg.
Yeah, that's the way I felt about it too. Like I get
He's
why
even
they
played
used it.
by James Brolin, who is the I don't know Marvel, so don't quote me on this. I think he's the dad of Josh Brolin, who played Thanos.
Okay. I don't know because I don't really particularly care. But it was an interesting twist. But also, it was kind of like I get how it works because he traveled so far into the future that he was able to come back with time travel, and he
Mhm.
was only able to use that particular time. That's why when Buzz came back, Zurg was already there, and whatever. So it makes sense and it works, but I would have preferred just a completely robotic Zurg. And I would have liked it to have been like, I don't know if you've seen the new Lost in Space.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so in the new Lost in Space, there's a whole like race of robots, and they're all so the way it works is this alien species made the robots and the robots turned against them. So when the humans meet them, they're going to kill the humans too. But Will Robinson is able to make one his friend. So
Mm.
I feel like it could have been like a robot race that like took out the people that created them and then just coming to invade. But I don't know, that wouldn't have worked with the storyline of Buzz Lightyear, and it would have just gotten way dark, way fast.
Yeah, I was just like the having the giant Zurg mech suit made like some of the fight scenes cool and stuff, but I was just like,
You knew that it
I
was
don't know.
old Buzz in there, so you're just like you're just fighting with an old Buzz with a really cool suit.
Yeah, it's fine. I just didn't it
To me, it's like the trope of children's cartoons where it's just a tiny little mouse inside like this big old body, the robotic body, and when you find out that the robot's been controlled by a puny little person the whole time, just kind of like, no.
I mean, I did like the kind of exploration of like, what if Buzz had sort of continued being the way he was and not
Yeah. Where
like
he didn't
grown or
realize.
changed?
That was an interesting concept that they thought of.
And like we talked about, where he gets the tunnel vision thing, he's like he's been trying to finish this mission for how many years, hundreds of
At
years at
least,
this point, and
yeah,
it's not even about like, let's get everyone home now. Really, it's more like
it was himself. It
it's to
was
make
him being
him.
selfish.
Yeah, it's. I mean, he even says, "I'm going to matter again." I
Yeah.
think
And
that's the line.
for him to say that, like, you realize, like, he went down so low to where he started kind of not really going crazy, but it got to his head that he had to complete the mission, and it wasn't even for the people anymore, it was for him. So
Yeah,
it became like a self-absorbed kind of mission.
and I did think it was interesting because I noticed after the first test flight fails, when he's about to go do the second one, Alicia is like, maybe let's think about this for a second. And he's like, no, Alicia, we've got to do this, blah, 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 whatever. And
Hmm.
then when he's with old Buzz, Zurg, at one point, young, normal Buzz, I guess, is like, well, maybe let's think about this for a second. And old Buzz is like,
Yeah.
no,
He just won't have it. And it's like, man.
it's the natural progression of how he was before. If he hadn't met Izzy and the others and like learned about,
Hmm.
if he hadn't realized, that Alicia had like this whole life on this planet, and maybe that all these people could actually thrive on Takani Prime.
Yeah. I feel like once he realized that people, it's not like they were stranded there and they were suffering. They made a little dome for themselves and they were able to thrive. They were able to live their lives comfortably. They didn't
In
have to
spite of it
worry.
being like a hostile planet, like
Exactly.
Buzz says in the beginning when they first get there, he's like, "This is it's uninhabitable." You know.
Yeah. And despite even that, the crazy vines and the giant bugs, they were able
Hmm.
to thrive and have a life. Like Alicia had her family and she was able to, enjoy her family and see her granddaughter at least grow up to like 3 or 4.
Hmm.
And, it's just, you don't think about that when you're obsessed with finishing a mission. You don't see the outside or like the bigger picture of it. And I think when Alicia told him, let's wait a couple years and, think about it, she had already realized that because she was already engaged. She, the next time he came back, she was pregnant and she was starting her life. She was finally realizing there's more to life than just the mission.
And Buzz, he had been on the planet for a year or whatever, but that whole time he had been focused on
On the mission, yeah. And
getting the test flight ready.
during that time, that year, everybody was like that because they were all building stuff for the mission. They
Hmm.
were all, like they put the turnip back up and they built the little launching thing. So they were all, like, okay, we're going to get off this planet. We're just going to take a little bit of time. But after that, that's when they were like, oh, we've actually been here 4 extra years compared to Buzz. And during that time, they realized, like, well, this is not so bad of a planet, you know?
Or like at least that we can make this workable.
Yeah, they can survive on it. And during that time, Buzz didn't see, he was only gone for 4 minutes. So he was still in the mentality of, we got to get out of here.
Which was the um not that exact mentality, but like that, like being focused on, "Hey, let's
On the
do this
mission,
mission and
yeah.
let's not think about this," was what got them into this trouble in the first place.
Right. And it's funny because you think about it, and Buzz still obsessed with the mission. It's as if old Buzz was already like 50 years older. He was already too far gone. But when
He said
you
he was like Buzz. He said something like, "I'm you in 50 years." I don't know,
Something
something
like
like
that,
that.
yeah. So he had already aged, and um he was still determined to finish the mission. But for Buzz, what I'm trying to get at is like he was still obsessed with the mission even with Alicia, even
Mhm.
after like 100 years, but because he did not live those 100 years, it was only like maybe at the most an hour that he had been circling the star and then coming back to the planet.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
because all of the trips he did, all those
Well,
years were passing, and
yeah.
he
I mean,
was
I
only
assume
gone for
there was at least, like, he went to bed every night and then, like, started the next test the next day or
right,
something like
yeah.
that,
So
but it's,
maybe
like,
like,
only a couple weeks at most.
yeah. But in space, yeah, he was only out there for maybe like an hour or two at the most, going through the whole mission. But he was still in that mentality, like, we got to get out of here.
And, we talked about how earlier in this episode, we talked about the difference between Woody and Buzz being that Woody is like the let's not think about this. Let's just jump in. And Buzz is like the let's think about this and let's plan ahead. But I feel
Right.
like once he has that plan,
Hmm.
he has a difficult time deviating from it.
Right. Yeah.
But you know, uh old Buzz slash Zurg gone really wrong when he smashed his socks.
Oh my gosh, that made me so mad that I mean, he called him a traitor because he did shoot him with the tranquilizer, but I was like, didn't have to kill him.
Yeah, and you could tell that like that socks was kind of fed up with him too.
Yeah, he was like, I like the new changed Buzz when he had tranquilized old Buzz. I'm like, for you to be that absorbed in the mission that you don't even care about those around you, even if it's a robot, I'm like, that's how you know that you're too far gone.
Well, and even just like looking at that socks, like he didn't bother
He was
his
beat up and
like he didn't
terrible
bother
looking.
to like try to fix him up or like he
Yeah.
clearly didn't care. He was just like
Yeah, he just
he
left him like that. Like, oh well, you're not part of the mission, really.
yeah. But I did like when the other socks was like, "You don't even wanna take some of this cool technology," and, normal Buzz is like, "Only you, buddy." And I was like, "Oh," and then he
I
got smashed.
know,
I
and
was
then he
like
got smashed.
it would have been funny to see the 2 Soxes together, though.
They would have been a pair of socks. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I felt really bad about that. I was so mad. I was like, how dare he? How dare he actually squish it? And then to think like how young Buzz thought about that, like he was probably really angry that he's like, future me did that.
Well, and you think about that too, that's like that would make him feel like, "Well, what if I could become that," you know?
Yeah, you don't want to become that. Like when you see your future self and you see something that far gone, like your attitude has changed to who you aren't. I think I would have been the same. Like I would have been like, no, I want to get as far away from that as possible.
Which then makes it funny that old Buzz says, "You've changed, Buzz."
I know. That
Which,
made me
like, yeah, he
laugh.
has because he's, like, realized the error of his ways, but still.
I know. It's funny that the older was telling the younger that.
Yeah. But, going back to what actually the other socks said about, like, "Oh, you want all this cool technology?" So, old Buzz says that he borrowed that technology.
Yeah.
And in the flashback, we see him like where he finds the Zurg suit.
Mhm.
And then at the very end, in that post credit scene, we see uh, that Zurg is alive, or at least said
The
the
suit is
light
still
on the
alive.
suit
Yeah.
comes back. So, and it's been confirmed from the director Angus MacLean on Twitter that Buzz stole all that stuff from the actual Zurg, which is
Oh.
part of why the robots say Zurg,
Uh-huh.
which makes a lot more sense because like that doesn't where would the name Zurg come from, Buzz?
Exactly. Like, that didn't make sense to me, but
Well, and it made even less sense to me at first until I saw the subtitled version, even though it was Spanish, because all I heard was the Zurg part. I
yeah.
didn't hear the little like the Bazurg at
Yeah.
the beginning. So I was like, what what is Zurg? How do, how does
How do you get
how do
that
they try
from
to say Buzz and accidentally say Zurg?
Oh my gosh. Now, like, does that I don't know, like, does that make it a possibility that they would make a second Lightyear movie?
I think that's what they want to do.
Because that would be interesting to see,
It
like,
also means that Zurg could still be Buzz's father.
oh my gosh.
If the original Zurg wasn't old Buzz. Assuming that old Buzz isn't just in that suit.
Yeah. You know, now that I think about that, it could be that, once Buzz stole everything, like if they do make a second movie, maybe they'll come to where they have that ship, like they have a tracking device on the ship and they'll come and then, you know, chaos
And
ensues.
actual Zurg
The actual
will
Zurg will
chase him down
come.
either because he's his dad or because he thinks he's the Buzz who stole the technology
Everything.
from him.
Yes, and he'll think like you did this to me and it's like no, I didn't. And then I think about it. I'm like he was centuries away. So does that mean that Zurg has the same technology to travel to and from in time? Like can he go back in time?
I mean, he says, old Buzz says, um, I went forward to a future like you could never imagine with all this
That's true. They
technology
might
and
have
whatnot.
the
So
technology already.
I don't know. But with how not so great this movie did in the box office and the types of reviews it's got, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers for a sequel, but I don't know if it'll happen.
Right, yeah.
I feel like I mean, we kind of touched on it earlier, but there was so much confusion surrounding what this movie is,
Mhm.
and people had so many like expectations for what it should be, which in fairness was some of those expectations I feel like Pixar set up either in
Yeah.
like inadvertently, but like people are either expect it to be like this, I don't know, like fun, like more like fun, like kids sci-fi movie, and then they're disappointed when it's more like um
An actual story.
yeah, or when it's more of like a serious kind of darker. It's I mean it's not really that dark, but you know what
But
I
it's
mean.
more of a
Sci-fi.
serious movie than like a fun, lighthearted, like Toy Story. It's not fun and happy like Toy Story, even though Toy Story does have its darker moments. It's more of a
I mean they almost killed him in a in an incinerator.
this is true. They almost incinerated them, but besides that, like Toy Story 1, uh,
Yeah.
I feel like it's geared towards the older audience because it's the movie that Andy saw. And the only people that would get that fully are like our generation.
Yeah, but then there's a part of me that's like, I don't know if a 7-year-old boy like Andy would necessarily be super into this movie, which then makes it again make more sense that that this movie was from the 80s, and then there was the cartoon series that was based on it,
Hmm.
Buzz Lightyear Star Command, and then that's what Andy's toy was from.
Right. And for
But
me, I can see a 7-year-old liking the movie, but I don't know, like with today's generation of kids, like I don't know if they would have liked the movie because like in the 90s, I was 7 when I saw Aliens. So stuff like that. Like when I was younger, I feel like kids watched whatever because their families were watching it and they liked whatever. And I think of it now, like little kids like to go watch the like Avengers and all the different Marvel movies. So maybe they would have
Mhm.
liked this movie too. But I think a lot of it has to do with the critics that saw it first and then they made the reviews and then the parents of the kids went and they saw the reviews and they're like, "Oh, well, I don't know now." But either way, parents will take their kids to see any movie. I mean, they went and probably took their kids to go see that one movie about the dog. What was it called? Dougal. Do you
No.
remember that movie?
I remember that it existed barely. I remember the McDonald's toys from it for some reason. I
Yes.
don't know a
I
single thing about that movie. But yeah, I feel like people had some not accurate expectations for what this movie was supposed to be. Um
yeah.
and
I feel like they could have explained it a little bit better and I think that's
yes, well
what
that's why I
really
feel like it's partly Pixar's fault.
yeah,
Like I
they
don't
set this
necessarily
up for
blame
themselves.
people. Yeah. Um People either thought that it should have been like a more like fun, lighthearted sci-fi kids movie,
Yeah.
or they thought that Woody should have been in it,
Honestly,
which
when
doesn't make
that wouldn't have made any sense, but for me, I think I went into the movie thinking that it was going to be a like a kids action movie,
mhm.
like oh yeah, blast them and like let's run everywhere and stuff like
Like the
that, which
Buzz
they are
Lightyear Star
running, but
Command
like
movie.
was that's what I was thinking it was going to be. But
And that exists if people wanna see that. You can
yes,
s
please
it's harder to
watch it.
find, but you can watch it.
But I think that's what a lot of people were thinking. It was supposed to be a different type of movie, and it's not what I was expecting, but it was not a bad expectation, or it wasn't like the expectation, but it wasn't a bad movie, even though I expected something different.
Yeah, and I feel like I've heard, um, a bunch of people say, like, oh, they liked it better the second time that they saw it,
Hmm.
and I feel like probably that's because
They already knew what they were going
they
into.
yeah. So if you didn't like it, then
Watch
maybe
it
you just
again.
try it a second time and see if your feelings change.
I mean, I personally liked it the first time. When I saw it, I thought it was a good movie.
Yeah,
I thought it
same.
was well made and the plot line was good. I mean, of course there was a few things that I was like, "Oh, like whatever," like with Old Buzz. Like that was just something I was not expecting at all for anything. But seeing it again the second time, I was like, "Okay, yeah, no, I like this. This is a fun movie. This is um it does keep a lot of references. I did like the references. I liked how in the movie, not in the movie, in the ship, the the sleeping areas looked like the boxes in Al's toy bar.
Oh, did
Just
they? I
because
never caught that.
they were
Oh.
all stacked like that, and they were all kind of like with a bluish glow, like the way in Al's toy barn all the Buzz Lightyear boxes are glowing with the blue light.
That's funny. Let me see if I can think of the Toy Story references. There's I mean, most of the stuff that he says, like when he's
Very
talking
obvious ones, yeah.
in his wrist communicator at the beginning of Toy Story is there at the beginning. Um, there's when he opens up socks and socks
He does a little
comes to
karate
life and
thing.
he does the over dramatic like karate chop like he does when he first meets Woody.
Yes. Oh, when
There's
he's exploring the terrain and he's looking and you see the reflection of his face,
yeah, and the Darth Vader breathing.
the Darth Vader breathing.
There's when she's playing the music.
He's like,
as
"You're
he's
mocking me, aren't you?"
yeah. Um, well, there's the it's both a reference to the Buzz Lightyear video game scene and the elevator fight with Zurg scene in Toy Story 2, where he
Ah,
jumps over and like does a flip
yes.
over Buzz. And I was like, is he gonna find like some discs to start throwing
I
at
know,
him?
that's what I was thinking too.
And there's also I mean, he says like not today or not today, Zurg several times.
Mhm.
There's at the very end when they're all like getting into the ship and they've got like their new Space Ranger suits and he's doing the
Mhm.
mission log. One, if you listen to what's the number of the mission log? It's something 001 and then the mission log that he gives at the beginning of Toy Story is like the same number, but it's 2, so it's like the next one.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And they also say like a version of the spiel that's on the back of Buzz's box. Like,
Yes, I
I'm a
did
member of
notice
the
that.
elite
The
uh
Galactic
universe.
Alliance.
Yeah, the universe protection unit. I protect the galaxy from the threat of invasion. They change it a little bit.
They did change it a little bit, but yeah, it was pretty much what he says on the back of the box. And I like that their ship is the
It looks
ship.
like
It
Buzz's
looks.
box.
This is not really a reference to anything, but his MRE just looks absolutely disgusting when he breaks it and he waits for it to heat up and then he just takes
Oh
out
yeah.
the food is just a brick.
Well, if we're talking about disgusting food, can we talk about the sandwiches?
I absolutely hate it. The thing that made me the most angry about this
When he
whole
put it on
movie,
the table,
yes, and then he just picks it up again. I'm like, don't
I
do
wouldn't
that.
even
We're
put
living in COVID.
I wouldn't even put a normal sandwich just on the
I
table without like a
know.
plate or a paper towel or something. It's so gross. I don't man.
That scene, okay, like if anybody's gonna be mad at any scene, don't be mad at the lesbians, be mad at the meat sandwich.
Yeah, that's a better thing to be mad at.
Oh my gosh, that just made me that stressed me out. I felt my blood pressure rising with that stupid sandwich.
Oh man. Well, we've been going for we're getting close to an hour now probably.
You're gonna have
And
to edit a
or
lot
2
out.
hours actually. We're way past an hour. Um so we should probably start wrapping up. Is there anything we haven't mentioned that you want to talk about?
Uh, no, we've pretty much talked about everything that I wanted to talk about, whatever I had mentally made a bullet point list of.
Well, if I have to give my kind of final thoughts, I feel like this movie is like a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, there was a couple of things that I was just like, if not a little confused about, just absolutely enraged about that meat sandwich. But but other than that, I mean, if you can get past the meat sandwich, it's a good movie.
Yeah, I had something else I was going to say. Let me I have to think for a minute.
Oh well, I'll tell you one thing: they did not have to make Buzz um his backside that detailed when he's in the pilot suit. I was just like, it's so awkward, but I can't stop looking at him.
Oh man.
And then I'm just thinking to myself, of like, this movie is not intended for 30-year-olds. Oh my gosh.
No comment. Yeah, I feel like it's a solid 8 out of 10. There's a part of me that is like, I'm glad it exists, but I'm like, there's so many other opportunities for spin-offs in the Toy Story world, and I'm like, we've already kind of had this. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
like
it's fun and I like it, but if we are to do anything with Toy Story, we could have done a Woody's Roundup something.
yeah, they need to just like make that show, and then they could make Woody's Finest Hour, and we find out what happens to
We
him.
find out what happens. That's all we need.
And I'm just like, there were too many other opportunities for spinoffs that they could have done instead of this. And I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
No, I
still
get
like
that.
it. I'm still glad they made it. I'm just like, there were other things they could have been done instead. But it's a good movie,
It is a good
in my
movie.
opinion.
I highly recommend people watch it. If you haven't watched it yet, please watch it.
And if you watched it and you didn't like it, then maybe give it another try.
Yes. After the second try, give it a third try. And if you don't like it, then too bad.
All right.
All right. Well, then.
I guess we'll hopefully be back with another bonus episode before too long.
Yeah.
Before we start Toy Story 2 sometime
Whenever.
in the future.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll be soon. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Be sure to follow our Facebook and Twitter accounts and send us an email if you have any thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns. And if you enjoy the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop.
Beep boop, beep boop, beep boop.